Previously, I'm embarking on a fairly ambitious new project. I want to make something amazing, something that you'd be able to base a career on. But I'll need your help. I'm only just getting started. Could take 6 months to a year of development time, but it will be special and it will be community based, and it's going to be great. Hi. I want to talk to you about track layers today, but first just a quick update on what happened last week. So I received heaps of feedback from you guys and it was really good. Interestingly, across the whole range from do absolutely no audio routing at all, leave it to audio bus, I don't want to see it, all the way up to give me a matrix. It was the whole range, which I suppose kind of makes sense because you guys use it in all kinds of different ways. But the most, I think, useful perspective was those of you who said, sure, do audio routing, but make it out of the way. You know, if you don't need to deal with it, you shouldn't be forced to. So I think to that end, the second last mock-up, that one, is probably the way to go. Because it doesn't force you. I think effects are probably going to be something you'd use fairly often, and what this does is it doesn't force you to deal with input and output routing if all you want to do is stuff with effects. So this will live in settings, and if you don't need to deal with it, you don't have to. It'll just have some sensible default. And then when you want to deal with effects, you can do that on the track screen. So you'll select a group or a track or a number of tracks and then go into the track settings, and then you'll be able to set up effects straight on there. So what it means is you don't have to deal with all the other complexities. What I'm also thinking of doing, there's going to be times when you want send effects where you've got just one particular kind of effect that you want to apply to a number of tracks as the one instance, not multiple instances. So I think what I'll do is if you click add effect there at the top, you're going to get this little pop-up which gives you the ability to select a brand new effect or one that you've already created. So if you've got a reverb set up on another track, you can add that same effect to this track, and changing the parameters will update it for all of the tracks that it's being used on. So that's my plan. Anyway, moving on. So track layers is something that I've been thinking about for a while now. I posted a little musing video on it a few weeks ago, and I just want to go through the kind of things that I want it to do. So here are my notes on it. So first of all, these are the goals that I have for this track layer stuff. So I want all operations to be as non-destructive as they can be, so that you can edit as much as you like, but I want it to be kept out of the way, so if you don't need to deal with it, you don't have to. I want to be able to, as I said in those first intro videos, swipe left and right on the track to navigate through the history, or kind of undo and redo. I want to be able to, like you can in Loopy right now, twist to adjust the loop offset if you've got the timing a bit wrong. Trim loops is something that I've had requested quite a lot. So, you know, for the first loop, if you've got the timing a bit off, you can trim the beginning and end to get it right. I want, so talking about that stack stuff, I want some layers to mix, like overdubs. You want to be able to mix with the layers behind. But if you import a new piece of audio, you don't want that to mix with the stuff behind. That's going to be a brand new piece of audio. So there needs to be both of those, both mixing and non-mixing. Then appending, so if you want to extend a loop, you can do that. I want to be able to do warping and quantization, the latter possibly in effect. Splitting and rearranging and editing of loop segments so that you can, well, I'll talk about that soon, but that's going to be really cool. Comping was another really good feedback, and I'll talk about that too. And per track automation, so you can actually, for example, adjust the parameter of an effect as part of the loop and have that play along with the loop. And yeah, so being able to rearrange, edit, all of this usual stuff with audio editing per layer. And then finally, we've had some requests which I think are really cool for sending the feedback effects back into the overdub, so you can have some really nice kind of degradations as you do more overdub layers. So that's what I'm dealing with, and I think I've found a way to make that work. It uses something like the arrange screen. So It's required a bit of changing around of the track configuration screen. So this is what it looks like now when you hold your finger on a track, or when you tap the configure button on a track pop up on the design screen. You get this. So previously there were, on the main screen, there were two big dials for volume and pan, and then there was the stack along the right hand side. So that's all gone now. I've merged the volume and pan controls with the loops, with the track settings, and if you scroll down with your finger, you get to scroll down through these different settings, and then there's a use default button at the bottom. And then you've got the effects tab, which I just showed you before, which looks like that. And then there's this new editor tab in the middle. So if you tap the editor tab, this screen is going to expand to become full screen, and you will see this. So this is the track editor. And it looks a bit like the arrange screen. In fact, a lot of the functionality is the same. So what we're looking at here is one clip on the track. You've got undo and redo, import and export. There's a record button, which I'll talk about in a moment, and a playback button. Clean, which I'll also talk about shortly, and then help and done, which are on all of the screens. Then we've got a timeline ruler here and some tools along the left side. That's mute, slice, and warp. And I'll go through each one shortly. You can adjust the start and end points of the track by grabbing these handles either side of the ruler too. And then you've got the track itself, so you can interact with the waveform here, and then you can of course mute solo, and there's a disclosure triangle, which I'll talk about shortly. So each of these clips, there can be more than one, and you'll see if you import, the new one will appear at the top. Now these are separate, they won't mix with each other. So that if you switch from one to the other, you'll only hear one at a time. They can also be different lengths from each other. So at the moment I just kind of copied and pasted here, but this could be shorter, it could be longer, and when you tap on it to select that clip, the timeline ruler here will change length to be whatever it should be. So there are these disclosure arrows here for each clip, and when you open them up, you see all the layers that make up that clip. Now all of these will mix together, and if you tap one of these waveforms, you get the edit controls, so you can copy it to the clipboard, you can duplicate it, which will just put another version of it right at the end, and then you can drag it around. You can delete it entirely, delete this segment from the layer, that's this bit here. You can slice it, I'll talk about the slice tool shortly. You can mute just that segment, export it, and then edit it using the iOS 8 extensions feature. So this edit menu applies to any of these waveforms, including the clip waveform. You note that the clip here is a merge of all of the layers beneath it. So if you perform edits here, it will affect all of them. If you try and do an edit, that will be editing that waveform in another app. It's going to need to flatten it, so it'll warn you if it does that. So you'll notice you can expand the layers as well and access sub-layers. So it only goes down 3 layers deep. Sub-layers are the separate channels that you've recorded. So if you've got a multi-channel input device and you've selected, for example, channel 1 and 2 as 2 mono streams, when you record, that'll appear as 2 sub-layers, and you can access them independently, which means you can affect them, change the volume, change the panning, however you like after recording, which I think is really cool. You'll also notice there are automations here. So by default, you'll just see volume, and you can just tap to put in nodes and change the automation. So you can press this plus button to add new automations as well. So there'll be pan, and if you've got effects, there'll be automations for the effect parameters too. And you'll be able to record those with this record facility, which I'll show you shortly. So I'm going to talk about these 3 tools along the top here. So the first is the mute tool, which will allow you to, once it's selected, you tap any clip here, any waveform, and it will mute that, so that just won't play. The next is the slice tool, which is going to be really great. So when you tap it, you get this tool ruler thing come down, and that'll appear just above the currently selected clip. So if you tap on another waveform, not clip, really it's waveform. Waveform was the term. Clips, I'm imagining apply to these top level things here, and then there are layers, and then there are sub-layers, just to make that clear. So you tap on a waveform, and it's going to show the ruler above whatever's selected. So that's that one there, that's above that one there. So once you tap in this space here, you're going to get a kind of triangle marker which will show up, and then you can drag that back and forth. You can zoom in and out with pinch movements to pick where you want to slice. And then this is completely stolen from GarageBand. If you then slide down with your finger, swipe down, it's going to split the clip. And then it will be split. You'll notice because we operated on the clip here, it's also going to split all of the sublayers. And it'll keep these locked together as long as you don't move any particular sublayers around. So if you just want to operate on the clip, you don't need to care about sublayers. You can keep that closed and you'll only be dealing with one piece of audio so that it gets as complicated as you need it to be. So that's slicing. Now there's another way you can slice, which if you hold your finger, long press on the slice tool, you get this menu that pops up that gives you different kinds of slices. So you can slice on the transients, and I'll show you the transient warp tool soon to see how that works. Then you can slice into even pieces, so 2, 4, 8, 16, and then custom, so you can make it 64 if you like. Then there's a kind of anti-slice, where if there are any adjacent waveforms, you can merge them together into one, so that you can drag them together and do that sort of thing. So that's, for example, a 16 slice. So once you've done that, this is where the mute tool really comes into its own. So I'll talk about comping shortly, but say you've just done a comp and you've got these separate layers, each of which refers to one cycle. You might want to take the best part of each performance. So what you can do is you can turn on the mute tool and then tap the slices to mute or unmute them. So you're toggling each of these little chunks. So you could do that, for example. So you mute these ones, mute those ones, and then you see you've got, for this segment, you're playing that layer. For that, you've got that layer, and you can just choose the best parts of the performance as you wish. You can also do that with the volume automation tool if you want some nice smooth crossfades. It's already going to do a crossfade here, but it'll be a micro fade. So yeah, I think that would work really nicely for comping. So, oh, that's right. So that's the muting. Now the clean tool, which is this thing up here, if you tap that, what it's going to do is delete all of the waveforms that are muted right now. So once you've done a comping, if you've decided that you're happy with that and you want to save some disk space, you can press the clean tool and it will just go and delete all of the muted clips. So you've just got that. And then if you'd like, you can long press on the clip tool and select merge adjacent, and it will merge them again into these sort of continuous bits. I haven't mocked that up, but that's how I think it would work. So that's the slice tool. Next is the transients tool, the warp. So once you tap that again, you get a ruler that comes down and it shows you all of the warp points. So by default, there's the beginning and end, which is selected. So if you drag that to the left, for example, you're going to shorten the loop and it will time stretch. Keep the pitch, of course. All of these are markers of the transients, and they're not active. You can see they're hollow. So once you actually tap one, it becomes a active warp point. And then if you then drag it to the left or right, it's going to warp that waveform so that you can play with timings and stuff. That's the idea there. So the record tool is what I want to talk about next. So once you tap it, it looks like this. So you've got the ability to set the record mode, and if you tap that, there are 3 modes. There's overdub, which is going to create new layers that will mix with the previous layers, and that's what you'll get when you 2-finger tap on a track on the play screen. That's kind of the default recording mode. Then there's comping. So if you tap that, what will happen is the track will mute, so you're not continually hearing all of the comps, and it's going to play alongside any other loops that are currently playing in your session. And it's just going to keep on recording layers, and it'll be muted. Once you're done, then you'll be able to see all of the layers come up in that screen. And like we did just then, you can slice them, you can turn on and off layers, pick the best ones. It's going to mix them, so you can have them mixed together, or if you want to just select the best parts of each one, you can do that thing with the mute tool and slicing, or play with the automation to do that. So then, yeah, you get pretty good flexibility over how that works. And then finally there's replace mode, which is going to record new layers but will mute the audio beneath. So nothing will be erased, but it's going to mute everything below, so all you hear is the newest layer. So then you can turn on off monitoring, set the input level, hit record, it'll go and do it. So that's the idea. So I'm hoping that will basically knock off all of those notes, everything we want to do there. So I guess next is to invite feedback again. If you guys think that I've missed something as part of that, I think that would be really good to know now. So at the beginning I was hoping to, like I did last week, do a bunch of mock-ups, but it turned out everything that I thought of that wasn't this, it just wasn't viable. This seemed to be the only way to accomplish all of the things I wanted to accomplish. So there it is. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. So thanks again for watching, and I'll speak to you next week.